Matt Bernie or Dan Illman taking a look back at the Grade 1 Awesome Again from Santa Anita Park on Saturday afternoon. It was a win and you're in for the Breeders' Cup Classic. We had a couple of big names in here, names that we were all familiar with. One of them got the job done in his first start for trainer Bob Baffert. That is Mubtahij. They break from the gate, and you're going to see, oh boy, I don't know if I would call it any sort of real scuffle early on, but Midnight Storm, we know his game. He's going to show some speed, and he goes right to the front.
We expected Midnight Storm to get right to the front in this race. He does so, and for Midnight Storm, this is a fair pace. 23-1, 47 for the half. It's not like he's all alone controlling things, but he's taking pressure. It's a fair pace up front.
You have Donworth and Curlin Rules there, the two horses coming up and pressing Midnight Storm early on in the front. Meanwhile, toward the rear, you're going to see in those familiar yellow silks that we're accustomed to seeing from Mubtahij. He's settled down, he's relaxed, he's a little bit wide, but I have to be honest, following Cupid, who went off as the 6-5 favorite, I think that was kind of the idea for Drayden Van Dyke.
The plan is unfolding exactly the way Baffert expected. Cupid is sitting in a perfect spot behind these three horses. He is sitting all by himself. A remarkably similar situation as to when he won the Gold Cup at Santa Anita, and following him is Mubtahij. Mubtahij realizes that Cupid is the horse to beat, and he's hoping that Cupid gives him the toe at a key point.
Pretty quickly, you're going to see the real race begins. Midnight Storm goes on with it. Donworth and Curlin Rules, they decide to back out of it. Cupid, he moves up a little bit, but I got to be honest, this was a very, very disappointing effort from him. Meanwhile, Mubtahij, he's just getting the engine cooking, and you're going to see him follow Cupid before he angles out into the clear.
I think if you're taking bets right now, you're taking bets on Cupid because he is moving sweetly on the outside. Mubtahij is being pushed along alongside. Cupid looks like he's about to inherit this thing. Midnight Storm's being asked for some run, and Cupid is being handled very gingerly by Rafael Bejarano, very confidently, if you will. But Cupid comes up empty. He doesn't change leads in the stretch. Neither does Mubtahij, but Mubtahij gets it done. Midnight Storm somehow is able to run second after being passed at the 3/16 pole.
And it looks like for a minute, Win the Space coming from the back of the pack, the big gray's got a chance here as he's just going to get up to the rear end of Mubtahij. You can't go on with it, though. Mubtahij, he stays on. This is his first start since the Dubai World Cup, and I think all of the connections have got to be thrilled getting an effort like this out of him. He wins the Awesome Again, pays $8.20. Midnight Storm, a really gutsy effort out there on the front end, sticks around to run second, pays $6 to place, and Win the Space rounds it out. $8 to show, your 50-cent try comes back $105.20. Mubtahij, again, first start going out for Baffert, first start since the Dubai World Cup, his first victory since the race over there, the UAE Derby, as a 3-year-old. He's a now 5-year-old. He's won 5 of 18 lifetime starts, over $4.5 million. Drayden Van Dyke, Bob Baffert gets a 102 buyer, a 120 time form US rating. It sounds like if he's training well, they're going on to the Classic.
No reason why not. And Bob Baffert also put blinkers on this horse, and it seemed to have him a little more focused, a little more in the race. And you mentioned that there was a little bit of a winless streak, but boy, he took on some of the toughest cookies of all: American Pharoah, Arrogate, California Chrome, etc. And Mubtahij ran credibly in most of those races. Yes, he's a solid horse that deserves an opportunity in the Breeders' Cup Classic after winning the Win and You're In race, but don't you get the feeling that there might be 3 or 4 better ones when they line up?
Well, isn't that the thing? I mean, really, if you run in that race, even though this was his first start in a long layoff and maybe you want to think there's going to be a forward move, I mean, isn't he at best used underneath? I can't imagine him winning the race.
Well, he's probably best with what we saw here from a speed figure standpoint. He is probably that 102 buyer speed figure horse. And whether you adhere to speed figures or not, if Arrogate and Collected and Gunrunner are 113 to 115 buyer speed figure horses, I mean, it's hard to imagine Mubtahij catching up. He is a solid horse. He tries hard in all of his races. There are flaws, his lead changes. That's him. He does not change leads in the stretch, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Drayden Van Dyke wasn't fooling around, but this was the kind of field he could beat.
Do you want to give Midnight Storm any extra credit, considering you look at just the chart and the raw flow of this race? He was the only part of the pace that stuck around at the end, and he was the one that actually was cutting out the fractions.
I will give him credit for that, absolutely, but the fact again that he looked like he was beat at the quarter pole and he still finished second makes me think less of the horses behind him. A mile and an eighth is a little bit far for him. He is probably, despite some of the good races he's run at longer distances this year, he is probably a miler at heart. The connections seem intent on getting a Grade 1 win for him on dirt, so it wouldn't surprise me if maybe he cuts back in a race like the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. The Turf Mile is, of course, an option as well. I doubt they go on to the Classic.
Win the Space, what do you do with him? I would imagine their connections are probably going to go on to the Breeders' Cup Classic with him. I don't think he belongs, but at the same time, He ran just fine here.
He ran well in this race last year. He ran just fine here. I think the flow certainly helped him. He was at the back of the pack all by himself, while there was some significant hitting going on up front during the middle and third quarter of the race especially. But I think in the same situation we talked about on weekend wrap for the Vosburg, stall-walking dude built up a head of steam. It looked like he was going to get there, and he just proved that maybe he wasn't grade 1 class at this point. I think that was perhaps the case with Win the Space. They went to the Classic last year. It was a disaster. It was an eased performance, which led to a long layoff. But why couldn't a race like the Dirt Mile maybe for Win the Space? Perhaps it's a little bit short for this horse, but you know he's going to get some pace, and the 2 turns works for him.
Cupid, what do you do with this race? Bob Baffert, after the race, said this was a bad effort. I thought I was going to run 1-2, and Cupid, I'm really disappointed. And we had talked about it a little bit, his most recent start in the Brubaker. He won, but it wasn't that sort of brilliance that we have seen from him in the past, and he's always been a little bit quirky with lead changes. He didn't change at all here in this spot. I mean, this was a really bad effort. Can you forgive him for it?
When Baffert ran him in the Brubaker, we all scratched our heads. Why is he running in this race off of a grade 1 victory when there are so many juicier pots out there? And he won the Brubaker by only a half length or so of Curlin Rules, who was well up the track in this race. And I think maybe that was sort of the sign that Baffert didn't think as much about Cupid, obviously, as some of his other major contenders. This was an unmitigated disaster. Do you go to the Breeders' Cup? You probably do, hoping to resurrect that victory in the Gold Cup at Santa Anita. But I think Baffert is scratching his head. What distance does he want? Does he want a mile? Does he want a mile and a quarter against some other really top horses? Boy, I'm completely sort of off him right now.
Breaking Lucky, can you give him any sort of benefit of the doubt, considering he was coming into Southern California, this racetrack probably not to his liking, or is it simply he's just an overmatched horse right now and needs to get back to probably the East Coast and softer?
This was another disappointing performance simply because this was the kind of field that felt like if he was going to win a major grade 1 race, this is it, going against a horse like Cupid with the worst of questions. Mubtahij long layoff, Midnight Storm Press coming into the race off form slightly, and he just didn't show up at all. Now the question I want to ask you is, does this maybe not reflect well on Gunrunner as it pertains to the entire handicap division? Breaking Lucky, again, he couldn't get to Gunrunner in several races, but these were the horses Gunrunner was beating, and Breaking Lucky came out here and he runs 5th in the Awesome again.
There is a part of me that I understand that logic. I guess I kind of look at it more and say, there are some horses that can run in Southern California and some that just absolutely can't, and I know he was all out and it looked like he was trying to make a bit of a move on the far turn and he just flattened out. I also wondered too, maybe he's had a couple of tough races. You know, how many times can you take a true shot at Gunrunner?
You could also argue that Gunrunner race, he tried to win it. He took a shot at Gunrunner on the turn, and all of a sudden that heart got broke. He was trying hard, and Gunrunner just laughed at him and ran away. You can look at it too many different ways. I'm simply going to look at this from an individual performance, not even going to bring Gunrunner into the equation. It's disappointing.
If things weren't already good for Bob Baffert, as far as the Classic is concerned, you have Arrogant, you have Collected, you have West Coast. Now you have Mubtahij, maybe you have Cupid, we'll find out, but you certainly have Mubtahij. He wins this race here, he earns a 102 Beyer speed figure in the Awesome again, and it sounds like he's got a pretty good hand when the big race comes along.
Pretty good hand, and Baffert's used to having a good hand. And the wonderful thing is, you could look at it one way. He's got 5, he could have a lot of pressure in the world. Heck, you train a Triple Crown winner, how many Derby winners he's trained, Breeders' Cup Classic winner, Hall of Famers, Dubai World Cup, Pegasus World Cup. That's not a lot of pressure at all. You enjoy sending these good horses out to the track.
Mubtahij gets the job done in his first start for Baffert and his first start since the Dubai World Cup. It's on to the Breeders' Cup Classic.